All right. Well, welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. Eric Rice here. I am your host. I'm joined today by Trenas Evans. We are going to be talking about politics. As you know, on this show, we cover the three topics you're never supposed to talk about in public: money, politics, and religion. And they all work together. They all have one thing in common: is it comes back to how does it improve your life, what you need to understand, and it helps you identify some of the threats that are out there, some of the opportunities that are out there, and some of the advantages you can have in life by understanding all sides of every story. So thank you for joining us here today, Trenas. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, Eric, thanks so much. Looking forward to the conversation.
And before we get going, you've got a new book out, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I do. So the book, I wrote the book as January 6th book. It was the first one published by a defendant. And I was threatened with the idea. They said, well, if you release this book, we could take the money. And I was like, well, you can take the money. You can't stop the book. I'm not worried about the money. I never wrote the book for the money. Of course, I'm not, I'm not opposed to being financially
Sure.
independent through things like that if it were to be the case. But it was never about the money. It was about telling the truth about what happened. And for those that don't understand, to be a published author and not go out and do self-publishing, to actually get published by someone, as I was, that they go through these things with a fine-tooth comb. They make you prove everything, not to the point that you could win and prove it, to the point where it's never even going to be litigated and it's not going to cost them money, and particularly with a topic like January 6th.
Yeah, January 6th was a perfect op. I mean, we haven't seen any protests on the right wing at all since then. There's been nothing. The left wing continues to protest and act like fools in public all over the place, but we haven't seen any conservative protesting. And there's plenty of stuff to protest. This country is it's not radically changed around in 6 months. We're certainly headed in the right direction, but it's a very long road ahead. What's your view on that?
You think about this. You can go back to January 20th, 2017, and what happened. And we all remember that when Trump was going to inauguration. January 20th, 2017 is the only date and time in the Constitution that's specific to the election, right? That's when the transition of power takes place, as they like to call it, the transfer of power. That doesn't happen on January 6th. That's a ceremonial process, according to the Democrats, because you can't even do anything about it, right? And they've not even done more to the laws there. But anyway, the bottom line is January 20, 2017, we all remember seeing the people marching down the street saying they were not going to allow Donald Trump to take office. We saw them flipping automobiles. We saw them looting stores. We saw D.C. on fire. We saw the limos and other vehicles on fire. We saw D.C. literally burning. Much like what we saw with George Floyd or other events, and the left doesn't get their way. They throw these horrific tantrums and bring all kinds of harm. And they shot Class A fireworks at officers. Officers were injured. And yet the ACLU represented people in those cases, and they ended up with a $4.3 million settlement split between like 160 demonstrators. That those people all got settlements because they were labeled social justice warriors simply because it was a Trump issue. Whereas January 6th, when people stood and sang Kumbaya and were singing and, God Bless America and others out on the lawn that had no idea about the earlier events of the first breach where the bike rack was taken down and Carolyn Edwards fell over and all these things happened. I don't want to see any officers injured. I don't want to see anyone injured. But most of those people came along and they were charged with the idea of it was that the 1752, knowingly entering or remaining in a restricted building or grounds. What restricted building or grounds? The Secret Service has since admitted that they never walked the perimeter and set a perimeter. That was a construction zone. That wasn't 1752. There was permitted events that day on the grounds. So all of those people that just went on the grounds, they had no idea that they'd even committed any crime. And technically they had not. It was a lie. So that was literally construction trespassing signs. It was like, do not enter for construction for safety, not as if you were going to be in trouble under law. 1752 is something that has to be delegated by the United States Secret Service. But the book's not boring, I'll tell you that. It tells my story. It tells the story of my child at gunpoint on my front porch and the horrific scene there to watch a 13-year-old on his way out the door to go to school with his backpack and a typical teenage American boy with a pair of gym shorts and a T-shirt going to school and having little red dots all over him as the federal agents are, acting like he's the, maybe one of these terrorist children or something, like he's got wearing a bomb vest or something horrible, right? So that was a horrific scene. They came with a battering ram, but this was only after two plainclothes officers came to my home and spoke to me, right? Months earlier, they came to January 17th and said, hey, Mr. Evans, were you there? I said, I was there. I have video. I have evidence of the entire time I was there. I shot video the whole time on my phone. And they asked me if I went in the building. I said, yes, I was in the building. I said, I led the National Anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. I did drink a shot of my own whiskey. out of my pocket, and I drank a shot of Jack Daniels that somebody else handed me. And, I mean, that was my crime. But on the megaphone, what I'm saying, I drove 1,600 miles across the country to demonstrate my position on the elections, not install Donald Trump, but the position was, please investigate this. So I was there not protesting, I was there demonstrating. So let me be clear, I was demonstrating support for the lawmakers that said they were going to do the things that they said they would do. We all heard them. They said they were going to object. They were going to ask us to be sent back to the states. They were going to seek investigation of these matters. That was what we were being told by many senators and congressmen. So our position was I was in support of those people. So I wasn't there necessarily to protest something. I was demonstrating my support for some, protesting the actions of others. Like a ball game, you're rooting for one team and not the other. So how un-American of me, like baseball and apple pie, right? So I go into the Capitol. I never harm anyone. I abandon my position of stop the steal and saying, who rah, 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 do whatever, right? I abandoned that and immediately started saying, don't harm the officers, don't damage the building, stay peaceful, on a megaphone. And it was consistent. It was the message I shared the entire time I was in there, less the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance and taking a break to drink 2 shots. So, hey, look, I'm an American citizen. I'm a 50-year-old man. And if I want to have
a man.
Whiskey, I am. And if, by the way, anyone that tries to tell me, oh, you desecrated the Capitol, you drank whiskey in there. If drinking in the United States Capitol were a crime, Eric, Nancy Pelosi should be doing life in prison. So I don't want to hear.
She might get the death sentence, Trenas. She might get. Doesn't she have her own private bar in Congress?
I was in the conference room there adjacent to her office, and that was where people were getting the liquor and beer from that they were drinking. Other people were drinking. I didn't drink any of that. I didn't touch any of that. Not even so much as a whiff of it. I saw people doing it. And I just was like, oh, this is dumb. Don't do this. This is stupid, right? If you want to walk around in here and demonstrate, I would have been content in that moment had we have sat down and locked our arms like our parents in the 60s, and hell no, we won't go and, do something about this. Like we see the Democrats, they're going to be picked up and carried out of there all the time. I would have been fine with that. I would have been just fine with that. And that's what I call a demonstration. I mean, it's civil disobedience and it's a Class B misdemeanor. Yeah. All right. You get a $50 ticket and you go home. It's end of story. That's how it's supposed to work. But with January 6th, suddenly it was an insurrection. Make this make sense for me, Eric. You're an intelligent guy. I've watched your show, seen what you do. I know these things. So, and I want your viewers to ask themselves this question next time one of their friends tells them about the great insurrection. We're the most armed populace on the face of the planet. The American citizens, the most armed populace per capita on the face of the planet. The average is like 4.2 guns per person in the United States. If that's the case, do you mean to tell me that the most armed populace on the face of the planet went to take on the largest military industrial complex to ever exist on the face of the planet? And we came to their seat of government, to the most secure building on the planet, and we didn't bring our rifles? And people, they brought firearms. What? 3 people had a firearm, 1 DEA agent off duty, and 2 other guys. And don't forget, there was one that wasn't charged. The person that brought a firearm that wasn't charged was a leftist. Yep. It was a transsexual, transgender, whatever you want to call it, right? That individual brought a firearm to the United States Capitol
unlicensed
that day, to the Capitol, and was caught with it. And guess what? They were never charged. Nothing happened to them. And you know what their reasoning was? That they said they were afraid of the other side and they wanted to bring protection with them, and they carried. So that's why the reasoning. The same reasoning was given by conservatives, yet they got 5 years in prison for having the Capitol, for having that firearm. It's the 2-tiered system of justice that's all too much talked about.
That's what I always tell people. I'm like, listen, if we wanted the Capitol, it'd be ours and we'd still hold it, or we'd all be dead. And I took a straw poll. So, after the last 4 years, I have, and 4.2, those are rookie numbers, unless you've been in a boating accident. And of course, those boating accidents are absolutely atrocious for your gun collection. But I did a straw man poll. So I know 79 people personally who went to January 6th, 79 people. Over 4 years, I've asked everyone. Only 2 of them have not had law enforcement or the FBI. Some of these people have 6 kids, go to church every Sunday, actually don't own a gun, don't even curse. Some of them, I've never heard them say a curse word in the entire relationship I've had. And yet the FBI was at their door. Now, they weren't always red dot, scope on a child, which is horrific, by the way. I hope your son's doing okay from that. That's traumatizing for a 13-year-old. But none of them, only 2 of them did not have local law enforcement or the FBI. What is our FBI doing? Going to a Christian dad's house of 6 who doesn't even curse, who was literally praying over the walkway, never entered the building. But yet the FBI took him into his kitchen for 6.5 hours and interrogated him. What are we doing? And I hope this book exposes that, because the stats are the stats. And by the way, thank God you are still alive today and you haven't been holding your breath for 5 years to get a $4.3 million settlement for all the things that you've gone through. It's ridiculous. Like January 2017, most people have forgotten. That was literally looked like Beirut in the 80s. Like Washington, D.C. was completely ripped apart. It made George Floyd protests look like Disney World. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then, of course, you have the Summer of Love followed behind that 40 years later. How many millions have been dished out to those people? Yeah, you know, you got guys like Owen Schroyer went to jail for what? Using his voice? Yeah. You know, these are ridiculous things that we've gone through. My friend Luke had to, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal defense fees.
Which Luke? Luke Coffey? Luke Lentz?
Luke Coffey.
Yeah. Oh, I know Luke very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like with the guy was praying, right? You know,
he held the crutch and begged people to stop and praying that, you know, that beautiful scene there at the tunnel where the man stands up, the crutch comes flying out. I mean, it's almost like God sent it to him, and he holds up the crutch and says, "Please stop, everybody stop, pray." And what happens? They come after him, prison time, you know, the whole 9 yards. You know, God bless him, and you know, he's found a good footing with working with Laura Logan now. So Laura's a dear friend of mine, and I've worked very closely with her through all of her documentary series. And by the way, we have some documentaries out too. We released one in 2022, Eric. That documentary was called Bloody Hill. Still available. It's absolutely free. It's streaming, bloodyhill.com. You can watch that. And then we have a new documentary that we put out in 25. David Summerall, myself over at Stop Hate. And that is pardonusfilm.com. And that's another one. I mean, these are first-class productions. I mean, so General Flynn's, Adam Riva, and that crew came to work with us on this documentary. We did first-class productions. I mean, this is like the Dinesh D'Souza's or the General Flynn's. Same quality production, same people. Marjorie Taylor Greene's in it. Others, you know, members of Congress are in the video, in the films. And we did these first-class productions, and we gave them away because the truth needed to be told, and people needed to hear this, because the media has showered us with such lies and inconceivable injustices that we would have never believed could have happened in this country. And people were afraid. I was afraid, but I will say this. You know, people are always like, God, you were so courageous, and you stood up to that judge, and you told the truth, and you let him have it. You spoke for 4 hours in front of the court, and you spoke up for the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and all these people. And nobody had ever done that. I've never feared Mickey Widoff, right? So Ashley Babbitt's mother, she came to me afterward, and she came to me, and we all had a big tearful moment. She said, I can't believe someone's finally done it. You stood there in front of that judge with your, you know, arse on the line, if you will. And you stood there and told her what the truth was. You told her that what was happening to the Oath Keepers was a lie. You told her what was happening to the Proud Boys was a lie. You told her that what she was doing was a part of a fraud on America. And I did. And my attorney was like, he leaned over, he's like, they're going to make you take off your belt and your shoes when she comes back. They're going to take you for a long time. And they came back, and I got like one of the lightest sentences that had been done. And I think that the judge, I don't know if she didn't know what to do. She was bamboozled with the idea of the courage under fire, right? I'm not sure exactly what that was. Nobody knows. But one of the things we do know, and we know she did not want to be appealed and bring more attention to the issue.
Correct.
Two things happened in my case that were really important. And these didn't happen a lot of places. These are some very unique pieces. One, while I was on pretrial release, I captured a federal human trafficking fugitive for child trafficking that escaped from federal prison, and the FBI and the U.S. Marshals could not find the person. I located the person, got them to my office, at which time I turned them over to the United States Marshals. They picked him up at my office.
Good.
Now, that's a big mouthful of a statement. And I tell people this. You can go on the site, go to condemnedusa.com, read it for yourself. The transcripts are there. It took me over a year to get it unsealed. We fought with the government, fought with the court. We finally got that unsealed. So it's there for you to read it for yourself, because the statement sounds like people are like, you're crazy. Like, that couldn't possibly happen. How can that happen? In addition, there's another scenario. The FBI came to me after I was sentenced and tried to get me to work for them. Not only did they try and coerce and bribe me to work for them, because we represented hundreds of January 6th defendants, and I knew the inside track with counsel. I was working with the legal investigations and the legal efforts of those individuals, right? So I set up the organization Condemned USA, and it was a 501c3 representing the January 6th defendants and paying the legal bills and housing and shuffling families back and forth. And we did this for hundreds of clients, so hundreds of defendants. And when they came to me, they tried to get me to work for them. And when I balked at the idea and then reminded them that I'm on federal court order, I'm on supervised release from the federal judge, I can't do this even if I wanted to. You'd have to go get approval from the judge, then get approval from my probation, then come to me with your idea. And the answer is, you guys have been kind enough. And the last thing I had said to them was, you guys have been more than kind enough to give me a place to stay and 3 meals a day. Thank you to my government, but you've done more than enough. I think we're done here. And I got up and walked out. And
what is it they were wanting you to do? What was the offer for?
Well, they weren't very specific.
That's obviously the most interesting thing here.
Well, the payment was very specific. That they said, look, we could, we've done payments, something like this. I said, because I asked them, I was like, what are you offering? What are you trying to get me to do? Like, I don't even understand. I said, do you want me to help you capture people on the dark web or locate people around the globe that are doing real estate scams and stealing grandma's houses? Or you want me to help you capture traffickers crossing the border, cartel members? Is that what you're asking? You want me to come back and be a government contractor? Okay. If that's what you're asking, we could talk about something like that. I might be interested, but why don't you just pay me to do it and do it the right way versus, having a civilian side of it do it. If you want me to be a contractor, I don't know, look, I have a history with the government. Maybe I could consider that. And the answer to that was, we'd just rather do it off the books and pay you cash. And when I said, yeah, I don't think so. I don't trust you. And I don't, and that's not what you're asking me to do. We both know that. What is it you want? And they wanted me basically sign on the dotted line and give them a blank check for what I would be willing to do. And I was like, absolutely not happening, right? I wasn't negotiating this. I was trying to get out of this by telling them I'm on supervised release. I can't work for you even if I want to. If the government wants to hire me, the government needs to offer me a job. And if you want to let me do something like those things, capture fugitives, whatever else, and we get that approved from the court, I'm in. I'm game. I can capture a lot of your fugitives that you jerk-offs can't cancel, right? Catch, right? I mean, I have a little bit better. Look, they said that person was in Mexico and they had a fugitive task force had already given up on the idea and that person was not going to be caught and had already fled the country. I had a location on the individual within 6 hours of the conversation that they said, sure, Mr. Evans, go right ahead. But the entire, the U.S. Marshals and the FBI's fugitive task force says, look, I had a location on the individual in 6 hours and had him in custody in 4 days. And this was something they'd already given up on. So, and an escapee from prison. So, the interesting part of that is some people are really good at things that they're capable of doing and other people maybe not so much. And maybe they didn't want to find this person. There's a part of me that believes they didn't want to find this person. I do think there was an operation going on there. I know that when the FBI and the U.S. Marshals want to capture someone, they're capable. So if they're not finding them, there's a reason. They leave them on the fugitive list or do whatever. They're letting them make contacts or whatever they're doing. But moving on. Those things happen. They're indisputable. They're in the book. But also what's in the book is the story of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and the legal defense. So we represented Dominic Pizzola in the Proud Boys case and Stuart Rhodes in the Oath Keepers. Stuart and I now work together with Condemned USA efforts. But I've moved on, Eric, I don't know if you know this, but to American Rights Alliance. So yes, I love Condemned USA. I founded the organization with the express purpose of helping January 6th defendants. We helped hundreds and hundreds of defendants, 600 plus we worked with at one stage or another. That's, 40% of these people or, 30-something% of these people. What's really interesting to me right now is that we have an expansion effort. I found that legal advocacy was a passion, something I wanted to do. I had no idea. And thanks to the government for changing my career in the media with the narrative of insurrection, I promised that
badges of honor. Badges of honor.
Yeah, I promised you guys do this to me and you will be sorry, right? You guys go ahead and do this. This isn't a threat. I'm not going to harm you. there's not going to be fisticuffs or, gunfire or, any of those things. I'm coming for you and I'll spend the rest of my days coming for you. And I'm going to come for you with the law. I'm going to come for you with the media. I'm going to come for you with our legislative actions, and I'm going to continue coming for them. So when Donald Trump Jr. gifted the money to Peter Tickton and Evan Turk to fund the American Rights Alliance as a startup, it was what the ACLU would, the founders of the ACLU had the idea that they would defend civil liberties. They would defend against injustices. It wasn't the American Leftist Union. It was American Civil Liberties Union. And now it's become much more close, something that resembles the American Leftist Union. 100%. So Don Jr. gifts this money to Evan Turk and Peter Tickton, two attorneys that have worked closely with the Trump family for many, many years, and members at Mar-a-Lago and others. And says, fight back against lawfare. Take this money and fight back against lawfare. And they said, okay. They contacted me. Peter and I have worked together for years and years on January 6th since 2021. And Peter recognized me as a resident expert on the topic early on and said, look, I don't know anyone that knows more than you about this. Can you help us, right? We're representing Trump, and I'm overcharged with everything relative to January 6th. I oversee all of this. I'm a central repository for information. So anything you have, come to me with. Let's work together. Peter and I started working together. So our path was very intertwined for years on end. The Norma Jean Anderson Colorado ballot case, I was the intervener. I'm the one that sued Mershon and Bragg. And theoretically, it's been said in many circles, and it may or may not be true, that the reason Mershon chose not to sentence ahead of time is because I had a writ of prohibition sitting at the United States Supreme Court with Justice Alito that prohibited Judge Mershon from doing it. And if he went forward with the sentencing, they were going to exercise the writ of prohibition. I can't promise that that's how it went down, other than the fact that I'm the one that sued, got through the Fifth Circuit, and got into the Supreme Court on the issue. Now, so they came to me and said, Trenas, you're experienced at setting up, you're an experienced business person, you're experienced with the government, you're experienced with the victimhood side of being part of when the government comes for you, you've experienced it from all levels with your roles. Will you come over here and be the COO of the American Rights Alliance and take this on? I didn't have to think very long. I mean, my instant answer wanted to be yes, but I had to, take some time and think through it. Since I've come on at American Rights Alliance, we have lead counsel for Tina Peters, who had an oral argument yesterday. People are often confused.
I want to get into that case. Absolutely. For sure.
That is, and then I'll jump right to it with you. So we have the lead counsel on Tina Peters, lead counsel for James O'Keefe. I just came from James' office this morning, but prior to our show here. So that's where I was. I went to meet with them. And so we represent James O'Keefe as general counsel. We represent the interest of O'Keefe Media Group and whistleblowers. And then we have a case named by Shana Gaviola out in California, which is a parental rights, religious liberties case, which is
case.
As important as any case we have. That we don't want to get into that too. But if you want to jump into Tina Peters, say the word and we can go.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a story I think that only people following politics really closely for the last 5 years even understand. Walk us through. I mean, this is a travesty of American civil rights. And please just run with the topic.
Yeah, the Tina Peters story has broken my heart for a long time. I became hyper aware of Tina Peters' issues. I wrote an amicus brief for Tina Peters on her case. I'd been on our show and we'd done a lot together and we talked. And Patrick Byrne, I worked with Patrick Byrne and 107 and those guys that were funding that effort over there. And there was a time and place, I think, they called me and they said, hey, great news. We got one of Trump's lawyers. We got Scott Gessler on the case. I went, oh, not such great news. And in my opinion, and I said, one of three things. Scott Gessler's either overloaded, incompetent, or playing for the wrong team. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. And I've told Scott Gessler that. Now, I worked with Scott. He was ordered to turn over all evidence of all cases to me from above. I'll just leave it at that. For the Colorado ballot trial, right? The Norma Jean Anderson et al. Yep. And all of the cases that were like cases from Chicago, Maine, Michigan, Illinois, California, Maryland, New Hampshire, that were teeing up to be similar actions to Norma Jean Anderson. And I was the intervener in that case. And through being the intervener in the case and filing my own suit in response to the lies that were told through opening arguments, they started with the lie from minute 3 of the Colorado ballot case, right? And that was Eric Olson, the attorney for CREW, Citizens for Responsible Ethics in Washington, which is absolute hogwash, right? So that had to do with the 2020 election and the idea that it was an insurrection and that insurrection was like a self-proving ideology that could be asserted by some low court, right? Like basically your county commissioner or traffic court could assert that someone's an insurrectionist and take them off the ballot. The only person that actually happened to was Coy Griffin. And there was no insurrection. You can't call it an insurrection. If there was an insurrection, that would have been a horrible day, right? Sure. It was not an insurrection. You can call it a protest. I'll give you riotous components to it, that there was a riot. Sure. I'll give you all kinds of stuff. But insurrection's off the table. Very worse yet, federal judges got into that and called that. So I'm sorry, I got off track here. Tina Peters.
Back to Tina.
I'm sorry. that's a very passionate issue for me.
Sure.
And it helps for people to understand how. So that's where Tina Peters and I really kind of connected on her case, because I was so intertwined in 2020 election issues and the servitude to that cause. Now, Tina called me, maybe March of this year and said, Trenas, I need help. I have a great legal team. You're familiar with them. Stephanie Lambert, John Case, Pat McSweeney, great people, Bob Sinkar, Linda Good, paralegals just out of this world. Her advocates, Jared and Marcy and other people that have just done fantastic, indomitable work for Tina Peters. But there was some dissension in the ranks, and there was some confusion about how to proceed. And I suggested Peter Tickton and his senior leadership come in and serve as lead counsel. And we agreed to take the case at American Rights Alliance. And Peter would come through American Rights Alliance and be funded by us for Tina Peters. Right? Just didn't find many cases that I was more, I found more endearing and I was more passionate about than a 69-year-old Gold Star mother. She's old enough to be my mother, slightly, just barely, but
she'd have been young. She'd have been young.
She'd have been very young, but she's old enough, right? So anyway, hey, wait a minute, are you trying to say I look old, Eric?
No, I'm only a year and a half younger than you are, so yeah.
So anyway, so here we go. So here's a story on this. So we got involved and we came together.
You look great, Trenas. You look great.
We have her habeas motion. Had oral argument yesterday. It was very positive. People are disappointed. They're like, oh gosh, Tina Peters didn't get out. She was never getting out yesterday. That was not the process that was occurring.
Right.
It was an oral argument with a magistrate judge to make it a recommendation to the Article 3 judge or the district court judge, federal district court judge, about whether or not we can do what we're suggesting can be done through habeas corpus. So at any rate, that went very well. It came out very well. I would like to have seen, obviously, our strongest and greatest day there. But at the end of the day, the judge sided with us. We got done what needed to be done. There was a lot of legal work that was already done before we got there. And Peter was hesitant to remove any concepts, leave them before the court. We can do this mixed petition scenario, let the court guide us out of it and say what can and can't go. Because Peter said, I'd be damned if I were the person that removed one of the arguments that could have been pivotal. And at least we got to let the judge see the entirety of the case as opposed to just presenting what could be presented for habeas. So strategically, the method worked. We got the information in front of the judge. I think he became very motivated by this. And as the judge closed out the day, he said, this case is in my radar. I intend to move quickly. So he recognizes the injustice and torture that Tina Peters is going through. But on that concept, Eric, I say one thing. Tina Peters, for your audience, a Gold Star mother has lost a child in a theater of war, right? As an active duty member of service, right? This is where someone has lost that child. And that's how Tina Peters lost her son. So she does not have a son that's now here to fight for her because he gave his life for us, for each of us. He made that ultimate commitment. He signed that blank check to the American government and it got cashed. And that's how it goes, right? Sometimes it happens that way. And that's that oath that we take that never disappears, never dissipates. He signed that oath, he meant it, and he paid. But now it's our job to protect Tina Peters because her son's not here to help protect her. I think that's the American public's role in this, and that's why they need to support her. Currently with that case, as we move forward, so we're going to refile an amended version and notice to the court on Friday. It's already being worked on. I mean, we were all on our laptops during the hearing going to town, right? So that happened yesterday. We completed that process by Friday that will be filed. And we're going to advance this habeas effort to get her into federal court to show that her rights were violated. The trial judge in the Colorado case actually said to her at sentencing that she was being sentenced to prison, right? And that she would not get bail pending appeal, right? Because Tina Peters' speech was too dangerous because she continued to assert that she believed that she did the right thing as the clerk of Mesa County. She continued to assert that there was a problem with the 2020 elections. Tina Peters wasn't yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. Tina Peters was not suggesting that people were harmed or go after somebody or go get them. Tina Peters was consistent with her message, the same message that said that she had a responsibility to preserve election data that was in jeopardy thanks to the actions of Jenna Griswold and what she was doing with that Dominion system and that so-called trusted build. could have caused a loss of data. No data
Mhm.
experts have refuted that. That is a truth. And you and I both know this, and your audience knows this. If you take your computer or your cell phone in and you're going to do a data transfer, get a new phone, we've all been through this process. And they go, oh, sure, it's all going to come over, all your contacts, all your pictures, all your, oh, oops, something didn't happen. It didn't work, or we couldn't get that out. Well, we don't know. They're lost now. Did you back it up to the cloud? Well, no, you told me it was, well, yeah, we thought. These things happen all the time. We've all lost data at some point in time in our life and through a glitch or unexpected scenario. Tina Peters upheld her oath of office by making sure that that federal election data was preserved. Now, had it have been just a state election, then things might have been different. But being that that was a federal election, the FBI and the DOJ started the raid. That's where that came from, right? That's who, if the FBI raids your home, is that not a federal process? Why? They raided it because the federal election was involved. So they want to speak out of one side of their mouth and say that the federal election holds true over here. But, oh, it's just a state, she's a state employee. We can't address that. And then people say, well, what about sovereignty and immunity? What about these things? What about supremacy, right? That she had a duty or a good faith arguments, right? So those that, watch too much Law and Order probably, bring these questions. And they're right. They're good questions. These apply, right? These things apply. They're good concepts. Supremacy, 9-0, Norman Jean Anderson et al. Recent case ruling out of Colorado. Colorado got it wrong in the trial court. The appellate court punted to the Supreme Court of Colorado, and the Supreme Court of Colorado had a 5-4 decision that got it absolutely wrong. The United States Supreme Court, in an uncanny fashion, came with a 9-0 ruling on behalf of Trump in that case, because Colorado was so abhorrently an affront to the justice system. It was unbelievable what they did. But so that's the Tina Peters case in a nutshell, and why where we are now. So it's our belief that we have hope that we can have Tina out, and is maybe it could be under 60 days. That's where we're leaning. Wow. We can't afford to lose any steam. We cannot afford to lose members of this team. We're coming into a case that is ripened and matured, that's years old now. Yeah. We cannot be expected to know where every single thing is. Peters coming in, that's senior leadership and lead counsel and his ability to lead. But that doesn't mean he's an absolute expert and knows every step of this way. I mean, there's years of legal filings and documents and motions and an entire trial process. You can't get up to speed on all that. He's there for leadership, and he needs the whole of the team. It's no different than a quarterback taking the field without receivers, right? Game's not going very far. These people are pivotal. They're important. And an all-star team's an all-star team. One all-star is not going to win, right? Yep. And you're fighting a government all-star team. The state of Colorado has put up their attorney general and others in response to this case. So what we need from the American public is they've got to get behind Tina Peters. We're about $200,000 upside down on the legal bill right now, and we can't afford for people to leave. So I'm asking them to stay in good faith. I said, look, you don't have to stay in perpetuity, but stay in good faith. Give me time. I will go do every bit of media I can do. I'll spend all day on the media. I will raise it $200K, right? People, what about the money Don Jr. gave you? I'm like, you realize we're fighting.
It's so expensive. It's so expensive.
So let me ask you this. And is Don Jr. going to be happy with me if we said, hey, we got $235,000. We need $200,000 to cover the back legal fees. But from before we appeared for Tina Peters, right? To keep this team together, to keep the band together, if you will, right? And if we dump that out, how long are we going to be around? We're not. The ACLU operates on like a $60 million a year budget.
It's a never-ending flow of capital, never-ending flow for the ACLU.
Oh, yeah. And then you got all the NGOs and all the stuff and the way they've done things, that they've essentially robbed us, and they're fighting to strip us of American values, Western culture, constitutional rights, religious liberties, parental rights. They're fighting us with our own tax dollars to undermine the whole of the United States.
We're funding our own demise.
That's right. So if you want to fight back and you actually want to get in this, and soldiers need ammunition. We're not soldiers, but we're a different kind of soldier. The legal team needs to eat. We need to get people on planes. We have to make meetings. We have to file motions. There's paralegals to be paid. There's legal secretaries. There's law firms that have to run. And we just ask that people consider that. Help Tina Peters with this effort, because we can't afford to lose anyone. We've come on pro bono. We're not, American Rights Alliance is taking no money to do this. We're not looking for money. But we have to pay those people that have been there in this fight for years, because they haven't been paid. Now that Peters there's lead counsel, they could just move away. Right. And say, hey, enough's enough. I've given, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours to patriotism. So those are important points that have to be made. So I do urge your viewers to consider going to AmericanRightsAlliance.org and coming over there and getting behind Tina Peters. Support that effort. You can go to Give, Send, go to Tina Peters. Make sure it's the one that's set up by Trenas Evans and American Rights Alliance. That's the proper one. That's the one Tina wishes that you use. And then, follow the case there. Follow the case with us. There's so much more to come on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be doing that later today. 100%. This is such an important case in American history because it's a clear violation of rights. It's a clear communist socialist construct to quiet people doing the right thing. Yeah. I mean, it's astounding to me in 2025 that we still 90% of the population still doesn't realize what's actually happening in this country. When you have freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of protest and assembly, all of these things have been trampled on. But Trenas, as we kind of wrap this up, what does the future look like? Is this getting any better? I haven't noticed any significant election law changes that have occurred in the last 8 years. I haven't, maybe I have missed them, but I personally haven't seen them.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. Look what's happening in Michigan right now. We just had the state official up there of the election perjure himself. We got earlier testimony from him. You have the on-the-record testimony. This is flying around X on social media. It's flying around, Rumble and Getter and all these different places. That's a reality. We just got one. There's one. This isn't like one of those where this person harvested 6 ballots and we're going to try and convict them for, that's what essentially we've netted crap. I mean, that's how most of America feels. We look at it 4 years later, but you had the Biden administration obfuscating and omitting and covering up for the election fraud. And if you spoke out about this, you got canceled. You were going to be censored. You were, any kind of social terrorism might occur for you, your business, your family, or whatever. Now this is different. And, I'm working on a regular basis. I'm working with the Attorney General's office. I'm working with the Department of Justice. We're having regular ongoing conversation about these issues, and we're pointing to things. These are happening. We're saying, look, get this guy on the stand, get that person on the stand. We know this history. The American people, right? The layman probably knows most of this as well as anyone. So that's all coming out of Stephanie Lambert's case where she's being prosecuted, right? She was in front of a criminal proceeding. That's what is happening to Stephanie Lambert. By the way, she's part of this legal team with us at Tina Peters. What they were able to flush out there goes to show that what Tina Peters did was absolutely right. Now, you talk about courage under fire. I did that, and I'm not referencing myself. I'm referencing Stephanie Lambert. She went scorched earth, courage under fire, and got this person on the stand and exposed them. That helps Tina Peters. It shows that these things happen, right? It gives the American public the reason to have the court of public opinion and say, here it is, because we all wanted that. And we know if they would have tried the 69 cases that they didn't try with Donald Trump in the 2020 election, had the judges have not found a way out of it and dismissed out of, gotten themselves out of the fire and gotten away from it, because they knew. There was never a trial. They keep saying, 69 cases, they lost 69 court. No, these corrupt judges. And now you're seeing the level of corruption. People started scratching their head with the January 6th thing because looking at the depravity, right? Looking at the difference or the disparity in how January 6th defendants were treated versus how others were treated over time, it was incredibly obvious that there was something broken with the system. And maybe we needed to be that because we were that silver lining that enabled the American public to see just how bad judicial corruption was, what they did to Donald Trump, what they did to us, what they did to school board moms, what they did to people that showed up at PTA meetings. These all happened. We watched it as American citizens. And then we all remember that, we were locked down and they wanted to put people in camps that wouldn't wear a mask or wouldn't get a vaccine, so-called vaccine, right? Horrible. It's horrible. And here we are now. All of these things are coming out, whether it be the chemtrails or this issue or that issue. It's like all the things that they said, they're nut job conspiracy theorists. And here you are with a totally different world being spun around where it's turned it on its head. It's all inverted. But the reason that those people are so ridiculous is I believe that mainly Obama knew they had to change how the media could operate. Government controlled media.
Smith-Mundt.
Never a thing in this country. But what they did through their efforts to the NGOs, they funded their own media. They subverted other media. They censored people. Censorship industrial complex was alive and well. And what they did is they so-called modernized the Smith-Mundt Act from 1951. The Smith-Mundt Act, when Trump or Obama modernized that effort, it essentially allowed for Americans to be hearing state-run propaganda through public resource. And that's exactly what happened. That's what CNN, ABC, CBS, the whole minutia of that. So thank God for people like yourself, Eric, because this is where journalism is today. This is coming from a man where you have somebody like yourself that you're not afraid to stand up and tell the truth. You're not going to lose your corporate sponsor and your $28 million
I don't have any.
3-year contract, right? I know you don't. I know you don't. And that's why I'm here, right? I mean, I on occasion go on Fox and these other outlets, and I always ask them like, so I mean, I don't get usually invited back on the same show. I always ask them, I was like, hey, how do you feel about that? And you know what the difference is in the American people and people in third world countries? People in third world countries have been living this generational propaganda nonsense, the minutia coming at them, and their grandparents and their grandparents before them knew, and they told them that's propaganda. It's the government. We're just forced to be subjected to it. We can't do anything about it, right? Or they didn't do something about it. And what the difference is the American public, they're so brainwashed through ideas like going woke and these other ideas and the transgenderism and all the nonsense that goes along with this. It's just mind-boggling. And what happens is, and the media cycle moves so fast that the narrative has been able to carry out, and the people haven't figured out they're listening to propaganda. So the person in the some third world country that you've never been to, Fallujah or somewhere, is going, "Oh my gosh, this is propaganda. They know better than to listen." South,
it's commonplace to them. They're like, "You guys listen to your news? What?"
Yeah, they're looking at us, and but we're guilty too, right? Like, so conservatives are guilty of this, Eric. Think about
100%.
it. If something comes on Fox News and we're like, "Oh, looky there, we like it," then we're like, "Yeah, rah, rah, Fox News, woo!"
That's propaganda too. Other direction.
Well, where was Fox News? Think about this. Where was Fox News with the 2020 election? They started out kind of gangbusters, but all of a sudden just out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, they called Arizona with like 12% of the vote in. I mean, people literally trust these networks. They're all wings of the same bird. It doesn't matter if it's Fox, CNN, if you have corporate sponsorship. Here's the other thing. 80% of their revenue comes from the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. And you just brought up something like two things that I've been accursed for the last 5 years. Yes, the Smith Modernization Act is real. It allows all intelligence operations to basically be bombarding the human brains in America. And chemtrails, very real things. God does not make straight lines in the sky. They are not supposed to be perfectly aligned and then dissipate and cause rain.
Sorry to go off camera on you.
No, it's hilarious to think.
You don't know this. I live on Canyon Lake, Texas, and that doesn't mean anything to you, but that's where the Guadalupe River flows into. I live on that river that flooded.
Yeah.
So I live on the dam part of that. And that tragedy there, I mean, we know what happened there. They were seeding days before.
Yep.
They seeded, they overdid it, and here we are. I mean, that's likely the scenario, right? I'm not going to guarantee it. I'm not a data and weather expert. That's not my world. But people that have been weighing in on this that I know. People that have done government operation on these issues have been weighing on this that I know. And I'm very, very saddened. And I think that, there's people that have this blood on their hands, the bloodshed, that what happened and the destruction and what people have been through in Texas there with that flood. In addition, when you talk about the Smith-Mundt Act, I would give you an interesting piece since you like that topic and you've been on it for a long time. Go to the history of every single FBI general counsel since the 70s. Every single FBI general counsel since the 70s has either gone to work for a major media outlet, all right, or the law firm that represents them. So they either became general counsel in-house, right, or they went to work for a law firm that represented those in-house counsels.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's an unbelievable web that's been woven. And the thing is, these legal traps have been set in place. I mean, like, I'm a finance guy by nature. So if you research all the legal rights, you actually really don't own anything. And just from a legal perspective, you could pay your car off. And David Rogers Webb did a great book on this called The Great Taking. But you could pay your car off. But that VIN number is still attached to a loan. Right? Like, it's just fascinating.
There's not many things you can own and not continue to pay tax on. But you're going to pay to get a license. You're going to pay to renew your driver's license. And, there is something in the United States Constitution that talks specifically about traveling. There's something in the Texas Constitution that talks about traveling and freedom to travel, freedom to move, freedom to move where you want to go. And if the modernization of that travel is the vehicle, then how's that work? So we had a great attorney, a friend of mine, went to law school, and for the last, I don't know, 18 years, I think it is. Paul, he's now dead. He was tragically shot by his son, and who pled guilty to shooting him. But a friend of mine,
Gosh.
I was with him the night before, and couldn't believe it. I got the call, the next morning, like 5 in the morning. One of the attorneys I was
I'm
with
so
the night
sorry,
called me,
man.
said,
Wow.
"Hey, did you hear about Paul?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, "By the way, where were you? Where'd you go?" Because he left me and Paul together, and then they found Paul dead. Nobody knew what was going on. I was like, wow. I'm like, I'm on supervised release for January 6th. Don't be telling me that somebody, I'm the last person that was seen with them, is now dead in their home. Thankfully, I was like at Penn, and the son had confessed to it later that day. But terrible event. I hadn't seen him, and he shot him within an hour of him walking away from us having a nightcap at our country club, and it was sad. But moving on, he fought this traveling thing in Texas. Was the point of bringing up this gentleman. And he fought this thing to the Texas Supreme Court time and time again. I think he made it to the Texas Supreme Court in 18 years, like 3 times. And all the way up from, he would just drive, not have a license. He refused to get one. And he said, "No, I'm traveling. I'm not driving. I'm traveling." And they would cite him. And then they would do this. And, they would impound a vehicle or whatever else. They're like, "What are you going to do? Suspend my license? I don't have one." He said, "Just drive again the next day. Buy another car and start driving." Right. And he didn't care. He drove like these $5,000 vehicles. He didn't care. He's like, "I'll drive it until they take it, and they can impound that."
I'm sad he's gone. I like this guy already. I'm sad to hear him go.
He was a hero. He truly was a hero of the little man's law.
It's one of my favorite memes online. It's a free country. I have all the licenses to prove it. Yeah, totally free. Get a license to fish, a license to shoot a gun.
What about a signed permission slip called the United States Constitution? It was signed by the founding fathers. That's your signed permission slip. So, look, I'm not an anarchist. I'm not an anti-government guy, but I am an anti-big government guy. I am a limited government, a limited form of government. I am concerned with the amount of executive orders and things that are coming out these days. I'm not happy. I wish, in my opinion, you have to do something to right the ship. So I'm not faulting Donald Trump for coming in and writing these executive orders as he's done, but I don't think any president should be coming in doing these 100 executive orders on day one thing like Biden's done. It's just nuanced idea. I think we have to do something to recapture the country. And for those of your audience that understand this, believe me, I don't like the ideas of things that create an inactionable position for you. I don't like you to be sedentary as an American citizen because it's inconsistent with your role as an American citizen, as a part of your own government.
Agreed.
You have to be actionable. I don't care if you're going to get involved and be on the board at the library or be on the board at the government, or be on the board at the school, or be involved in PTA. I don't give a damn what you do, but you better be a part of your community. You better be out there, and you better not be afraid to use your voice. Don't be afraid to share your positions. If you're a Christian, say it. If you're not a Christian, that's fine too. I'm fine. If you love the United States Constitution, you believe that that's the doctrine that guides who we are and our freedoms in this nation and protects not only yours. And if you're not courageous enough to do it, and you're like, "Oh, I don't really want to get involved," you're one of those guys like, "I don't want to do it. I don't want to write a check. I don't want to get on a list." You're already on a list. You were on a list if you didn't do this, if you didn't do that. They've already got a list for everything. We know that. That's come to fruition. We can see those things happen. We know that they had lists for people that were Catholics. They had lists for people that were praying in abortion clinics. They had lists for people that were attending MAGA rallies. They had lists and after list after list after list that they've compiled government data, and they cross-reference it and use it to go after you. If you don't have the courage to stand up for yourself, and you're that kind of sissified, cowardice, fallen victim American, all right, okay, that's okay. That's on you. But do you not have the courage to stand up for your children and for future generations? What fight do you leave to your children and future generations if you don't get involved and you don't become actionable today? And that's why I say that I believe that you're going to see in this administration the most bold action you've seen probably since Lincoln, right? Mm-hmm. And we're talking the boldest. And I believe Donald Trump, you're going to see a burn the boats moment. Those of you that don't know what that is, go look it up. Simple quote: burn the boats. And that's
you must win the war because you ain't getting home. That's right. And I think that, one of the things is, and you're 100% right. I couldn't advocate for that last speech any more than anyone in the history of the world. But the list thing, this isn't going to get better. This is going to get worse. We just gave Palantir access to all of our data. The big, beautiful bill gave all that data over to OpenAI and Sam Altman's crew. We are embedding AI into the system. Lists are going to get stronger. You're already on them. If you're watching this video, there's a 98% chance that you are on a video, on a list for watching this video or listening to this podcast. That is just a reality of the surveillance state, and it's not getting better. And I don't, I didn't get into politics and I didn't get into podcasting to cheerlead one side. My side is the American public, and the surveillance state's getting worse. So we need legal battles. We need legal soldiers and generals out there that are conducting these things for our own freedom. So, Trenas, how can everyone follow you, and how can they support? I know there's you issued the Give, Send, Go and the website for Tina Peters, but how about you guys?
Yeah, so AmericanRightsAlliance.org. Okay, I don't need a big hefty salary to do these things. I've been very fortunate in my business over the years, which of course the government delivered much ruination to, but that's okay, right? That's not what it's about, right? My kids are grown, they're gone. And I'll fight this to my dying breath. So we need your help. We do need support. The cases need support. We need the kind of people that are going to get involved. We need the kind of people that aren't afraid to get out of bed. We need the kind of people that aren't afraid to, donate, write a check, help. Tina Peters is $200,000 behind. Shayna Gaviola. There's a terrible case, and I'll leave you this one. We'll talk about it next time. I know we're probably out of time, but Shayna, it's a religious liberties and parental rights case in California that if we lose that case, your children are going to be in a damn shame of a country. We have to win that case. And that's a case coming up. It's going to trial in just a couple months. We need it now. We got to get people there. I got 100,000 pages of discovery on that on Monday morning. 100,000 pages. Our attorney, George Pallas, that's handling that case. Excellent individual. But AmericanRightsAlliance.org. AmericanRightsAlliance.org. Join us in the fight. Don Jr. trusted us with this, right? So this is coming from somewhere. We're not just some fly-by-night. Don Jr. helped us get set up. We're set up and running. We're fighting cases. We got Tina Peters. We got James O'Keefe with OMG or previously Project Veritas. Household names are here. They're coming here because these people trust me. They know that what I do is legitimate. They know what Peter does is legitimate. They trust Peter. They trust Evan. They trust me because we have been on the front lines of these things. And we've often talked about, wouldn't it be great if we could fight just hundreds of cases and fight back? Not only that, you can't win just holding up a shield. You cannot just block and receive blows. You've got to swing a sword. And I'm telling you this, we have a launch program, a launch pad for some of these cases. We're going to go on offense and fight back. We're going to strike back at the heart of this. So if you want to get involved in that, you want to help us shield good Americans. That could be your mother or your brother or somebody like that. You want to help us shield good Americans at American Rights Center? Join, give a donation, right? Be a monthly subscriber. I'm telling you, those are like the greatest gifts to people that are 25, 50, 500, 100 a month, whatever it is, monthly subscribers, because that's how you build a budget about what we're doing. I can go out and beg and beg and beg and try and find the next $50,000 and $100,000, $250,000 donor. If we're looking for some high-end donors that would like to be a part of our advisory board, we're setting up that section now. So that's another important piece. We're doing a lot of United States pardon work in that same effort. We are very successful there, and I'm looking forward to that. We're meeting regularly in D.C. with Ed Martin and others. So we're right in the midst of the heavyweight version of the pardon. We've already gotten some. We're going to get more. So I know that's a big effort for us. But people need to cure these injustices. We got to go after things. We have to defend things. SEC violations that are just nonsense that Biden, closed things up and then said, "Oh, now you violated." Like what? Yeah, they went after it. It's a redistribution of wealth. It's always the same with Marxists and Maoists and communists. It always starts out with, we're all going to have the same, which means nothing except us, the elite. We're going to live in castles and it's going to be great. And you, the rest of you, will have nothing and stand in line for your food.
Yep. Cat food under a bridge. That's what they want for us. Well, Trenas, this has been a fantastic interview. I hope to have you back on, get an update on all these things and the alliance and everything that's going on right now. Thank you for shedding some light on this. Everyone out there, pray for Tina Peters. If you can't help, you can't do anything else, pray. Like, send your prayers to her. We need to get her out of prison. She is actually an American hero that very few people know about. And I hope to get that story out more and more over the coming months. So, Trenas, thank you so much. God bless you. God bless this country. And we will see you all in the Rice Report next time.